That's nice.
That was what was it? The Sunday afternoon.
Could have been a Tuesday afternoon.
Corey, talk about your chord movement.
Basically just walking down from. So we're in G, and one thing I like to do with low G tuning is kind of treating the low G as if it was like a bass string. And that's going from C major 7 to this almost like an augmented to this B minor, but then you have this open A on the bottom, which is like almost like a sus chord, and then walking down a G minor to A minor, and then resolve to D7 back to G, and then the typical walk to the G7, or you could substitute that for like a, this is like a F major 7, I guess. Then you can flat that on the second string, just half a step down, and then you land back on C.
Clay, how do you approach soloing over changes like that?
For me is like I like to try and listen through a couple passages of the chord progression, just to make sure that there's room for other creativity within what is being played. So for example, I think eventually we ended up playing like an E flat.
Yeah.
And then like so an E flat, or we would play like almost like an E flat major 7 almost. There's a couple of notes that are in this chord that usually ain't present in the typical G major scale. So when I hear chords like this being played within the key that I'm familiar with, I try to identify all the notes that are actually in this chord that typically aren't in the scale, and then that's kind of like, oh, this is extra options for me to play.
Yeah.
Instead of playing like, when you hit that E flat, then I can play like,
yeah, and B flat. Yeah.
you can play like a B flat major scale almost. And then
back to
then back to the G major 7. And one of the cool things that I found when you're soloing is starting from a note that's within the chord that's actually being played. You use that as kind of like a lead-in to whatever phrase or expression you're trying to make. And this is kind of everything that happens after that is basically you being familiar where all these notes are and the techniques that are involved to be able to express what you want. And that only comes from doing it over and over and over again until you're just, fingers are sore, ears are probably tired of hearing the same chord progression, but that's what it takes to actually come up with any kind of solo, whether if it's 2 chords, 3 chords, or what we just did.
Yeah.
And also being familiar with the style helps a lot too, because this is kind of has like a lo-fi / a little bit of blues and R&B in there, kind of all jammed all together into one. So being familiar with like the actual feeling of the tune or piece that you're trying to play is going to help a lot, because that'll affect your phrasing.
Yeah, if you have a loop pedal, you pretty much just open up shop and start making noodles.
Yeah, looper pedals is not just for stage performances, it's great for practicing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what helped me a lot. For example, if I had a hard time playing in a certain key and figuring out like what should I solo over, I'll try and play a few different types of music within that key.
Yeah, and figure out what works.
Yeah.
Like when you resolve to that chord, or for the last chord, yeah, like how you're saying, how you basically just play a B flat, but that's still, you still you still have to go back to G. You still have to go back home.
Yeah.
Back to,
And then sometimes like you'll be playing like a different scale up against a chord that is somewhat related to the scale, but not really like the scale you're playing. So I'm just saying B flat, because that just seems easier in my brain for kind of constructing a solo over that. I'm pretty sure for you it's either somewhat similar but also different as well.
it's the same, and I try to identify where things are going. So if you're doing, you can play like 3 different scales from there. You can go from G. You can play a straight G major from when you go to G to G7. You play a regular C.
Like a G7 is just adding an F, an F natural in there.
Yep.
And what a lot of people don't realize too is like when you go into these chords, there's like there's passing notes in between. You can do. And you can use that kind of like to like whatever note is in here, so you can even do it.
Yeah. I mean, technically you can just go.
Pretty much, if you wanted to.
Would you say starting with a note in the chord and coming back to a note in the chord?
Yeah, or kind of using that note within the chord that's being played as kind of like a target. That's your target. You can start from another one, but you kind of want to get there so that it kind of makes sense to whoever's listening, and also with the progression that's going on too, and that helps. You could also play all over the place too, but if you're just trying to get started and learn how to solo, that's one big useful tip, is just start on a note that's in the chord that's being played.
Yep.
Hey, I'm going back to, so say you're going G to G7. Do you actually think like G scale, C scale?
Straight
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
but then still emphasizing G.
Right.
But playing on
All
C.
the notes
so
is a C. Yeah. David's he's been evolving his build for many years now, which I always really admired. But it's like, it seems like he settled in on these for the last few at least, and I like where he landed. Like the one that Corey has, you wouldn't imagine without a sound hole on the soundboard.
Yep.
Has the power that it has, but it does.
I got a mic for each sound hole.
Kind of do.
Massive sound holes. Massive side ports, rather.
I guess with like that type of sound holes, there's really no like a bass or treble side, because it's all right there.
It's a powerful concert, huh, Kale?
Yeah, this is the concert that we both thought it was a tenor.
Close your eyes. I mean, obviously the body's smaller. But...
Yeah, if you really look at it. But then we still thought it was a tenor. And then and you're like, no, it's a concert. It's like, really? And then
it's very tenor-esque in tone as well.
And I mean,
it has the soul of a tenor.
Yeah, big sounds come in little instruments.
It's like a small guy with